I want to preface that this snapping turtle is a rescued snapping turtle. You would never handle a snapping turtle in the wild like this. They will never be as friendly as this. She has a neurological disorder. She was rescued and she is non-releasable. So we use her as an educational ambassador. But again, please do not approach animals, snapping turtles in the wild like this. It's very dangerous because their defense mechanism is snapping because they have a smaller plastron on the bottom. So she cannot enclose herself in her shell to protect herself the way that a box turtle could. So her defense mechanism is to snap. So usually you'll encounter these turtles on land when you see them, or you'll see them swimming in the water. They're more likely to snap at you when they're on land because she moves much quicker through the water. You can see the webbing on her feet, and they're pretty awkward on land, so they feel more threatened. So this is a freshwater species, and they can be around 8 to 14 inches, around 10 to 35 pounds. She's actually not even full grown. You can see how much bigger she is than all the other turtle species that we've looked at so far. She can lay around 20 to 40 eggs, and they take about 90 days to hatch. They feed on dead animals, insects, fish, birds, even small mammals because they're so large themselves, amphibians, and surprisingly a large amount of aquatic plants. So these guys can also live for around 30 years. And this is another turtle, like all the other turtles of the species that we were talking about, that will bask. So you might see them on land to lay eggs, but you also might see them trying to dry out these scutes and shed them. So they want that UV, the way that we enjoy going to the beach and sitting on the sun. They like to sit out and help dry out that skin to stay healthy. So this is also another turtle species that will brumate. So they will slow down in the winter. You might see them, moving very slowly in the pond this time of year. They're all starting to wake up, but they do hibernate in the winter. So our next turtle species that we're going to talk about, we're going to put her away. Is the painted turtle. So this is a freshwater turtle species. You can see they get their name from this bright coloration that they have along their side here. It looks like an artist painted it on them. So they have this flat shell, and again, they have that webbing between their toes, which helps them move through the water. They will usually be around 4 to 10 inches. They have to eat their food in the water, not on land, because they can't move their tongue as freely, making it hard to handle the food. They'll feed on aquatic plants and dead fish and other animals. They will lay around 4 to 20 eggs. Usually takes around 70, 90 days. Interestingly, however, painted turtles lay their eggs one at a time in separate ground holes. So the other turtles that we've spoken about have laid one hole where they'll put all their eggs collectively. These turtles will lay their eggs in individual holes. So these turtles will also bask to help shed those scutes, but also shed some parasites, help dry them out. And a fun fact about these guys is a group of turtles is actually known as a bale of turtles. I want to point out that this turtle is commonly mistaken for the red-eared slider, which is a common pet store turtle. That is not a native turtle species. It's actually an issue with pet releases of those because they drive out the native species. The way you can tell the difference is the red-eared slider will have a distinct red line behind the eye right here that this turtle does not have, but you want to make sure that you're not releasing those because they will dominate the same environment that our native species inhabits. So we're going to move on to talk about next sea turtles, because this Saturday, May 23rd, is actually World Turtle Day. So as much as we have some land and freshwater turtle species here, we don't want to forget about our international travelers that come to Long Island, our sea turtles. So we have 7 species of sea turtles. We have the green sea turtle, we have the loggerhead, the hawksbill, the leatherback, the Kemps Ridley, the olive ridley and the flatback. Here on Long Island, we really only have 4 species that frequent our waters. We have the green sea turtle, which is right here. We have the loggerhead turtle, we have the leatherback, and we have the smallest of them all, the Kemps Ridley. So we're going to talk about how to identify sea turtles. So the best way to identify a sea turtle is actually by the scutes. So we have different types of scutes. We have the vertebral scute, which is right here up and down the vertebrae, the spine of the turtle. We have the marginal scutes around the edge here, around the margin. We have the coastal scutes, which we count in pairs. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4. We have the nuchal scutes, which is right up at the top here, and then the prefrontal scutes up on top of the head of the sea turtle. So the best way to identify turtles that we're going to focus on is by the prefrontal scutes and the coastal scutes. So it goes without saying that if the turtle has no scutes, it's going to be our most unique sea turtle. We're going to have it be the leatherback sea turtle. So the leatherback sea turtle won't have that hard carapace. It'll have this leathery skin on the back, and it'll have these dorsal ridges. This is actually the largest of the sea turtles, one of the easiest to identify. And it does come to Long Island, but it's not one of our more common species here. Next, we'll talk about the hard carapaced sea turtles with large scutes. So if the sea turtle has 4 coastal scutes, so 4 pairs of coastal scutes, it will either be the green sea turtle or the hawksbill. So then to further classify them, you can look at the pairs of prefrontal scutes. So if they have 1 pair of prefrontal scutes, it will be a green sea turtle. You can also tell because it will have a more round shape and will have this starburst-like pattern on the shell. But when in doubt, always count the scutes, because this turtle, the hawksbill, has 2 pairs of prefrontal scutes. It also has a more oval-shaped shell and a hawk-like beak in the front. It's best to identify by scutes. So the next turtles that we will identify will have 5 or more pairs of coastal scutes. So if they have 5 pairs of coastal scutes, it can either be a loggerhead sea turtle or an olive or Kemps Ridley sea turtle. For our sake, we will refer to this as a Kemps Ridley. The olive ridley is not a native species here. So if they have 5 coastal scutes and they have a longer body and more brown colors, it's going to be a loggerhead sea turtle, whereas the Kemps and olive ridley are much smaller and more round shells. These turtles will be on Long Island. The Kemps Ridley is one of the more common cold stun turtle species. So this is actually a migratory species, all of these turtles. So they will come to Long Island from around the world, and sometimes if they don't migrate in time, they will be in our waters when it gets too cold and they will be cold stunned. But we will go further into that next. So I want to preface for World Turtle Day that all of the turtles, all the sea turtles around the world actually do have a conservation status, and most of our turtles here are either considered vulnerable, even critically endangered, or just endangered. So for size reference here, you can see which of these turtles are the largest and the smallest. So we have the leatherback compared to a person is quite a large turtle. Even though they are so large, they actually feed on jellyfish. And we have the loggerhead and green sea turtles. We're a little bit smaller, but still on the larger side. And the smallest of them, the Kemps and olive ridley. Each of these turtle species feeds on a specific diet, and they all lack teeth. Loggerhead feed mainly on hard shell organisms such as lobsters, crustacean, and fish. Green sea turtles are vegetarian and prefer sea grasses like we have here, like Zostra marina or eelgrass. Leatherbacks, as you can see here, feed mostly on jellyfish. Hawksbill sea turtles have a bird-like beak that they use to cut through soft coral, anemones, and sea sponges. And Kemps Ridley are omnivorous, mostly eating jellyfish, snails, crabs, and shrimp. but they will occasionally eat algae and seaweed as well. So we talked about earlier that some of our turtle species, you could see them in trouble, and we want to do our best not to intervene and to call the appropriate people if we do see a turtle this time of year that we think is abandoned, you know, a hatchling, or if we see a turtle that looks distressed, we want to call one of these two numbers here and let the professionals handle it. So if you see a turtle that you think is injured, a land turtle like the box turtle, or if you see a freshwater turtle like the snapping turtle or the painted turtle, or saltmarsh turtle like the diamondback terrapin, you want to call the Turtle Rescue of the Hamptons. And they have the proper permits because of all these species are protected to a degree. And they will know the best way to help these animals, because we always want to focus on letting nature run its course and reuniting first before we intervene. And then for marine turtles, so for sea turtles, this is a 24-hour hotline. It's often used in the winter for cold stun sea turtles, like we talked about. They don't migrate in time, and they'll get cold in the water and they'll wash up on the beach. And most people's reaction is that they want to help them out. They want to get them in their car and warm them up, but you have to warm them up very slowly. And also, again, these turtles all have a conservation status, so they are protected. So we are not allowed to handle them on our own. We have to call the appropriate numbers. So the best thing that you can do for our local turtle species is just to stay informed and know the proper people to call, and they can instruct you, and to help keep these environments clean. So we have all this time right now in quarantine. We can go out and clean the beaches and keep them nice for our sea turtles. You know, the best way to celebrate World Turtle Day is to go out and keep their habitat clean. So I will open the floor now for any questions.
Let everyone take a moment. If they have a question, they can put it in the chat. One of our viewers does have a comment. She has seen diamondback terrapins in the Peconic Bay swimming with their snouts above the water. Thank you for their comment. Any other questions?
I see that Paul has a question. I have seen sea turtles here on Long Island. Mostly I have seen them in the ocean, so they're not in distress. I've seen them out off the coast of Montauk. I've seen green sea turtles and loggerhead sea turtles. But if you're walking the beaches in the winter, if you walk along the rack line, you might run into a cold stun sea turtle.
Are there any other turtles in the Peconic Bay?
In the Peconic Bay, I think it would mostly just be the diamondback terrapin. I don't think you would see in that bay in particular sea turtles. So I think just the diamondback terrapin.
You might see the occasional Kemps Ridley. They're quite small too.
Yeah, are they there this time of year?
Not until summertime.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's a bit early. So turtles are hatching this time of year, so keep an eye out. You might see some hatchlings. We talked about that earlier, that if you see a hatchling, you don't want to just pick it up. You can call a number that we have listed if you're worried about them. But usually they're pretty okay. They're okay on their own. But yeah, box turtles will be hatching this time of year.
Any more questions? I don't see any.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us today. Our next program is entitled Camouflage in Nature, and will take place on May 28th at 4 p.m. with our educator, Paul. You can find a complete schedule and register at SOFO's calendar on our website. Follow us on our website, on Facebook and Instagram for news on SOFO in the natural world. Stay safe, everyone.